Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today I want to share with you 5 tips on how to shoot portraits around neon lights. I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to shooting portraits around neon lights, but I recently did a shoot with a friend at a local arcade, and at that shoot, I learned a couple of things that I wish I had known before the shoot, and I wanted to share those things with you guys. Before I continue, I wanted to say a big thanks to the model Suzette for modeling, of course. My friends Jeff and Eli for helping around during the shoot and giving me a couple of ideas to bounce off of. So big thanks to Suzette, Jeff, and Eli. If you've seen my tips for shooting portraits at night video, you know that my main takeaway from that video was to really bring up the exposure by way of raising the ISO, slowing down the shutter, or using a lens with a wide aperture. This tip can also be applied to shooting portraits around neon lights because yes, most neon lights are going to be very bright, but some of them might be really interesting and also be very low in power. By raising the exposure using the methods I explained earlier, you won't have to pass on those interesting lights. I'm definitely the type of guy that likes to shoot manually, but during the shoot, I learned how great things like auto ISO were, specifically around lights that had big shifts and how bright they were. There's this nice game at the arcade that had some nice, beautiful, soft light, so we decided to shoot next to it, but as soon as we started shooting, we learned that the light would go really bright 1 second and not even a second later go really dark. And if we wanted to shoot manually, then we'd have to adjust the settings for each different brightness that we wanted to capture and just kind of time the shots, which was just going to waste a lot of time. By using the auto ISO, I could adjust my other settings for that bright exposure and start to shoot. And if the light got any dimmer, then I can let that auto ISO do its job in getting a correct exposure. If you've ever been around any arcade machine at all, you would know that the light doesn't stay constant and it doesn't stay the same color as well, which is why I recommend using a camera that can capture at least 5 frames per second, because I can guarantee you that each shot taken within that second is going to be very different. So during the shoot, there were some times that I wanted to get a little creative and shoot through certain reflections, but while doing so, I learned that the autofocus wasn't going to do its job because of those weird reflections and because I was shooting in low light. Although I do rely a little heavily on autofocus, I learned that manually focusing was going to be the best thing to do for those creative shots rather than waiting for the autofocus to struggle and maybe get the focus that I needed. This last tip is going to be one that's specific to shooting at arcades, and that's to not be afraid to get low. Even though I've been to that arcade and other arcades before, I never really took into consideration where the placement of the lights were. It wasn't until I started to shoot at the arcade that I realized a lot of the relatively new games have nice big sources of light on the ground. Alright, so that's pretty much the end of the video. I hope you guys learned something, and I hope I helped in case you guys were already considering doing a shoot around some neon lights. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing because I do plan to put out an educational video every week. Alright, take care guys, and I'll see you in the next one.